I'm going to invite everybody back to their seats, and we'll get going on the next phase. All right, welcome back, everybody, and we are now starting the council meeting immediately following the committee of the whole. I just want to acknowledge, as we're having this meeting, that we are gathered on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish people, specifically the Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. Their connections to these lands continue to this day. I also want to point out these proceedings are streamed live and recorded for archival purposes. We have a first item on the agenda is adoption of minutes. If I can get adoption of minutes.
Move adoption.
Moved and
Second.
moved and seconded. Are there any corrections, amendments, changes to any of the minutes? Much appreciate the good work that goes into making these so accurate. With that, all those in favor, opposed, none opposed. My remarks are fairly brief today, and as they should be. Just want to make a couple of notes of appreciation. Most of council attended the Forum of Councils on Saturday, the November 30th. This was an almost all-day event in which members of councils from across the South Island, members of the CRD, area directors in the area, as well as members of councils from many First Nations around the South Island all got together and talked about a number of items of interest. Too much to go into here, certainly covering economy and partnerships and how do we work together with the intent of building relationships. It was a very powerful day that was, I think, really well appreciated by everybody who attended. So I just want to express my appreciation both to the CRD who organized it and to all of the councillors here who attended. And also want to just, we held our first, for this council, our first community-to-community dinner with our Songhees First Nations Wednesday, a week and a half ago. That was just an extremely positive experience. I think a lot of good relationships were built, which is the intention of that. So I just want to express my thanks to the UBCM, who helps with a grant to help fund that gathering, to the Songhees Nation for attending, all their staff and the councillors, and to our staff and council for attending, but also especially the staff and Councillor Braithwaite, who did so much to organize that event at the fairly last minute. So thank you very much for that. This is the last regular council meeting of the year. We have a couple more meetings coming up on Thursday, but I just want to express my appreciation to council for the lot of work going on this year, and to staff. We were just having a talk today about the busyness of schedule, and I don't know if people appreciate, sometimes we get complaints about there's too much on the agendas to get through in a short period of time and there's not enough time to read it. It is not untrue, but it means there's an awful lot of work going on at the staff level to generate those reports and to do the background information and to prepare, and a lot of work at this table as well to go to to attend the meetings, to read that information, and to try and make a reasonable and thoughtful discussion. So my appreciation here is to council for the preparation, because I'm struck every time we have these meetings of how much preparation goes into it. Nobody's coming to these meetings unprepared, but also just that to the staff for it. The numbers are 71 meetings last year, and we're at 96 to the date this year. So about 40% more. So just to give some indication of how busy things are going here right now. And if you're in the hall during the day, you'll see the staff running around getting things done. So they're very much thanks to the staff for all that work that's going on. We have up first third public participation period. If anybody wishes to come forward to address council on any item of interest to Oak Bay, and appreciate we're getting to that about an hour and 14 minutes later than we usually do. So thank you very much for your patience. The same process applies as to our committee of the whole public participation, which is just to state your name, write your name, and your municipality of residence. Your 3 minutes starts once you say your name, but just turn the microphone on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's past my bedtime, so please forgive me.
All of us up here are way past our bedtime. It's all
Right.
good.
And not only that, but I'm one of these seniors who gets to look at stuff and ponder over it and think all night about what I'm going to say in front of you. And I'm not a good speaker, so I wrote it all out here. So I hope you'll forgive me. So I'm here tonight because I think there's a problem with the Community Climate Action Working Group. I'm glad to see it's on the agenda a bit later on. The objectives state that the working group is to provide 5 recommendations for community and or the district. Community and district are 2 distinct areas.
Right, can I just ask a favor of staff? Mr. Lee, if you could just there's a microphone cover at the bottom there that it kind of pops if it's not on the microphone. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. There, that's better.
All right. Yeah, I won't contaminate it now. Okay. So anyway, the working group is looking at 2 separate things. On the one hand, it's looking at the community, and the community demands a certain kind of expertise, formulate ideas that will encourage people to be climate change sensitive. You know, I get that. But there's also another part that says the district is to receive recommendations on what it is supposed to do. Now, the district consists of a whole bunch of things. It consists of operations, infrastructure, roads, sewers, parks, shoreline, buildings, physical assets, which demand that whoever is going to make recommendations have expertise in those areas. Now, you don't need expertise to borrow ideas from other municipalities. You do need expertise to deal with the district. So ask yourself, how can this working group provide you with valid recommendations if they do not relate to the timing and magnitude of climate change and to Oak Bay's specific operations and assets? Okay, so you're dealing with physical structures on one hand, and you're dealing with, I call it, goodwill, or, you know, keep the population happy on the other hand. Let me give you a simple example. Extreme precipitation is anticipated to increase the frequency and intensity of precipitation in the wintertime. So, can Oak Bay's drains cope with it? You know, we deal with drains that are 100 years old. That gives us an idea of where we're going. So how can the group assess the impact and whether this is even a problem unless they have the expertise on board? A 15-minute introduction by guest speakers is well and good, but I suggest if you want to have a...
Since we interrupted you for the microphone piece, we'll let you go for another 45 seconds here.
Okay. So I'll try to speak faster. I think you need expertise on the working group. In particular, I think you need to look at the terms of reference to ensure the working group is on target. More specifically, I believe you should augment the group with a civil engineer, perhaps staff from within the engineering department of Oak Bay, include a parks representative, a climate scientist from UVic, and a respected environmentalist such as Dr. Hebda, who gave a talk the other day, would certainly do wonders. And lastly, perhaps even an oceanographer who can advise on sea level rise and infringement on the many structures we have around Oak Bay, our defenses, who could also work with the group. So that's my concern. I don't think the group is well-founded. I think you need to alter the terms of reference and bring in more expertise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. I'll invite other people to come forward and speak if they wish on any topic related to Oak Bay. I don't see anyone else coming forward. I will just take this opportunity to, Councillor Appleton, did you want to address any of the concerns raised there. I know there are multiple opportunities to invite such experts to that group. And you don't have to. I'm just going to give you the opportunity if you have anything to add.
Thank you, Worship. I will. I have total confidence in the members of the working group and their expertise and their discretion in requesting speakers exactly as per the terms of reference to advise on any topic that they feel is important for council to consider. And if the direction for if it is council's will to change the terms of reference for the Community Climate Action Work Group, then I would seek council to do that. Otherwise, I, as chair, will proceed with moving forward with the structure of the working group as it's laid out in the terms of reference.
Thank you. I'm just going to add, just because I think that there's a very legitimate question raised there about giving direction for operational pieces. And to be clear, the recommendations are going to come back to this body for consideration. If there's things that impact any operational or budgetary requirement, then we'll go through that process of getting that feedback from staff and within the context of all of the other projects that we have underway. So I think it's important to know this is not a body that's going to direct those decisions. It is a body that will advise where they see the lowest hanging fruit to achieve benefit, and then we'll have to consider that as a body here with the staff input. So just if that helps give any comfort that this is not, there is expertise there being applied for that within the priorities. All right then, so moving on to item number 4 in the agenda, we have the Oak Bay Advisory Planning Commission minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Move receipt, sorry. Yep. Move receipt. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Then we have the Oak Bay Community Climate Action Working Group minutes.
Move receipt.
Moved receipt. Can I just get a seconder for moving receipt? And
Can I have?
we have a mover. I need something either to.
I'll move receipt, but then I have a just.
Okay, so it's seconded by Councillor Patterson. Any other, Councillor Patterson?
Just not to put any pressure on, but I do notice that in the minutes it says that the plan is to bring back recommendations to the strategic plan, and the strategic plan I think should precede budget, and the budget meetings that are shown on the schedule later in this agenda are for February 6th, 13th, and 20th. So no pressure, but I just point that out for Councillor Appleton's consideration.
It's a very tight timeline we have indeed here on this. However, we may have to put some bookmarks into our strategic planning to sort of put some things aside for those and our budget. All right, we have a motion on the table to receive. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Appleton, for the work you're doing on that. We have item number 6, new business and verbal reports. Is there any new business tonight? That would be motions or notice of motions? No? Okay, moving on to report from the Capital Regional District. No meeting on Wednesday, so there's a lot happening on Wednesday's meeting, mostly of a general nature. I will just, we've got some updates on some of the housing first plans, which is the Housing Corporation, not the CRD, but very interesting in terms of where we're at. We're looking at the end of 2020, a number of more buildings entering into a mortgage-free state, and that money being able to be applied for more new builds. And under the Housing First, around 600 units of the 2,000 targeted should be completed. So a pretty substantial amount of building has gone on in the last 3 or so years. So, and that's my CRD update. Is there any other verbal reports from anybody that wishes to talk to around? I'll just go around the table this way then. Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very briefly, in my capacity as Library Board Trustee, attended a Planning and Policy Committee meeting on December the 3rd. The most salient point for Council's reference coming out of that meeting will be that Phase 2 of the facilities assessment will be completed by the end of the year. Phase 2 of the facilities assessment, Phase 1 was for the main branch and options for potential replacement of the main branch. Phase 2 includes assessment of all the remaining branches, so it also includes the assessment of the Oak Bay branch. So my understanding is it is the intent of GVPL staff to bring forward some of the content of that facilities assessment report to Council as part of their regular report out. So I'm curious to see the assessment of that building. Also, this past weekend was the GVPL's annual highlight for the community is the cookies and crafts event up at our local branch on Saturday, which if you offer free cookies, you can always ensure a good turnout. So it was really, really well attended, and the crummy weather also contributed to that, I think. We did have our second meeting of the Community Climate Action Work Group on December the 3rd. We had a full public participation period at that meeting. Really excellent ongoing engagement, so I'm just very, very pleased with how that's going along. Council should be aware that the working group did do some extensive work developing their approach, basically guiding principles and decision-making tools. And I just want to take time to acknowledge staff. Staff supported that process of teasing those things out and coming to a lot of really good content very quickly. So thank you very much to staff for supporting that process. And I will also mention, it was mentioned actually in the public participation period, but I think a number of councillors attended the meeting on climate change adaptation at the beginning of last week, put on by Oak Bay Parks, Friends of Uplands Park, Community Association of Oak Bay. I think those of you who were there, excellent turnout. I think it was north of, well over 100 people, probably a better part of 150 people. So I was very pleased to see the support for that. Really good dialogue in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Braithwaite.
Yeah, just really quickly, we had an AVICC meeting on Friday, and basically it was just planning for the 2020 convention, which will be held in Nanaimo in April. So just everybody, I'll get you the proper dates, and you can add it into your calendars.
Can you do you know offhand when the deadline is for any motions due at AVICC?
I will find that out for you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green, anything?
Yes, I attended the Oak Bay Tourism Committee meeting last week, and I was very taken by the video they produced also of the Christmas light up, which was terrific. And we all know that Mark Delahunty weighed in on the deer issue as well. That video was shared far and wide. I had many calls and emails about it. I also shared it with Haley Goodgrove and with our mayor. And I chuckled most of the week after seeing that video. I just want to remind council members that tomorrow night is the BIA's Christmas open house at the Penny Farthing between 5:30 and 8:30, I believe. And I also understand that there will be a bit of a commemoration tomorrow night at 5 o'clock at the Heritage Commission meeting for outgoing volunteer Marion Cumming, many of whom you know has been here for many, many years. She has done so much both for Indigenous relations and for heritage of all forms, the foundation as well. So that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Day, anything you want to add? Councillor Patterson, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to give a brief report out on, as a member of the Oak Bay Emergency Planning Program Liaison. I attended the annual volunteer recognition party of the Oak Bay Emergency Program. Unfortunately, it was at exactly the same time as the climate change experts meeting, which I unfortunately had to miss. And hopefully, we weren't too noisy for the meeting. We did our best to keep it down while we're having a really great time. So I just wanted to say that I had the privilege of representing a mayor and council and providing the land designation aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Zelka. With that, we will move on to item number 7 on the agenda, which is Housing Needs Report. We have sent that back for more discussion, so we won't be talking about it. So item number 8, we have the land use items that we dealt with at the Committee of the Whole. So item number 8, the development permit application for 1280 Newport Avenue. So the recommendation to this body is that we recommend approvals. Councillor
I'll move
Green.
approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Next, 2187 Oak Bay Avenue.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? No. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. The item number 10 on the agenda we're not dealing with. That was a bit of an error having it on this body, as it goes out automatically to our to the neighbors for notification. So we're on to item number 11, vehicle and equipment tender awards. We have Mr. Brozick here, I believe, to speak to the recommendation. And welcome.
Through you, Your Honor. So the district issued an invitation to tender for an articulating crane and flat deck truck, a 3/4 ton pickup truck, and a service truck and body. These vehicles and equipment are used in the Public Works and Recreation Department for daily operations and capital projects. The submissions do not include additional warranties, add-ons, and attachments, which were included in the budget. Based on specifications and low bid, the recommendation is that the tenders be awarded to the following proponents. For the articulating crane and flat deck, to Metro Motors. So it's a 4-ton crane with a 25-foot reach. It came in at just about 152,000, and the budget was 178,000. The 3/4 ton crew cab long box pickup be awarded to Jenner Chevrolet. This vehicle is used by the Parks Department. A lot of the time it's used for crew transport as well as a light material handler. So an additional back dump is going to slide in dump box is going to be put on the truck, which would be another additional $4,000 to $5,000 for that. And lastly, the service truck and body be awarded to Metro Motors. So the service truck is an integral part of the day-to-day operations of fleet maintenance. And we had to upgrade the specifications for it. We felt it was necessary so that we can install a minimum 3,000-pound crane off of the back of it. It is over the capital budget by $27,000, but that will be offset by 2019 purchases, which have already happened, of the water service truck and electrical service truck, which we reduced their specifications for those. And those two were under budget, which were approved earlier in the first quarter of $41,884.
Thank you, Mr. Brozick. Are there any questions of Mr. Brozick from Council? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for information, perhaps from staff, what's the useful life expectancy of some of these vehicles, if you could?
Mr. Brozick?
They have quite a long life expectancy. For the crew cab truck, the pickup truck, it has a 15-year life expectancy, while the other two pieces of equipment have a 20-year life expectancy.
Thank you. Do they have bulletproof glass? Sorry, I couldn't resist. Councillor Zalka? Yeah.
Thank you. With respect to greenhouse gases, I understand we I don't know if we still are, but the CAROP reports used to capture the district, maybe still are capturing the district level greenhouse gas emissions. Just wanted to ask whether these vehicles will be part of that going forward, and any update on the CAROP report would be helpful as well.
I'm not sure who to put that to. Mr. Brozick, do you know the answer to that question?
No, I'm not quite sure about that, but I can definitely check into that.
Does anybody have the answer for that? Yes.
Through your worship, yes, they'd be included in the inventory for the carbon.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Any other questions, staff? Need a motion?
I'll move the recommendations.
Moved
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. On to item number 12, acting mayor rotation and 2020 council appointments to boards, committees, commissions, committees, foundations, and liaisons. We'll do these in a little bit of an order. That first, that council approved the 2020 acting mayor rotation, which is the same as 2019's acting mayor rotation.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed? I will. Not my phone dinging. Item number 2, and further that council approve the council appointments, the boards.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other changes? Yes, Councillor Zalka.
I do note that this list does also now include a appointee and an alternate for the Advisory Planning Commission, and I very much appreciate seeing that there. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's we're trying to make an effort to make sure that there's that continuity there as well. And I think that came out loud and clear on the committees and commissions discussion, that we should have that consistency. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Item number 13, meeting schedule.
Move the recommendation.
Second. Moved
and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you. And the item number which 14 is just a memorandum. So 15, we have Oak Bay Parks and Recreation Commission repeal bylaw 4741/2019, and we've done first, second, and third reading. And I'll keep a attention here because I think we had non-unanimous voting on this last time, so I'll make sure I note that. If someone can make the motion for
I'll
third
move that
final reading.
that council give final reading to Oak Bay Parks and Recreation Commission bylaw repeal bylaw number 4741/2019.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We don't typically debate on final reading, but I will if anybody has it. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? One opposed, Councillor Zelka, thank you. Item number 16, water rates bylaw amendment. I guess I'm going to move the final reading.
Move final reading.
This is bylaw 4743/2019. Usually have discussion on the final reading. All those in favor and opposed. We have Councillor Appleton opposed. And item number 17, sewer use charge bylaw. I need someone to move final reading.
Move final reading of the bylaw 4744.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? I just don't really normally discuss this as adoption. All those in favor and opposed. We have two opposed, Councillor Appleton and Councillor Braithwaite. Thank you very much. Then we have item number 18, the financial plan bylaw amendment, bylaw 4745. Mr. Payne, you've been sitting here a long time tonight for a chance to speak to us about this report. Why don't I hand it over to you to do a little introduction? I think is that the appropriate person on this one? Yes, Mr. Payne, welcome, our Director of Finance.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff have prepared a Q3 report with full year financial forecasts accompanied by a financial plan bylaw amendment. We're a little bit late on the timeline that we would typically like to deliver this report to Council. Typically what we would aim for is third or fourth week preceding the quarter end, so that would be October, third or fourth week. I just want to note with Council that the reports were prepared with a greater level of conservatism, just to ensure that I could have a high level of certainty that we won't exceed our approved expenditure limits by the end of the year. So I'll provide a quick overview of what the forecasts are saying. To begin with, revenues are projected to exceed budget by $1.4 million. This is as a result of a couple of different items. First of all, the one-time additional gas tax transfer from the feds that exceeds $800,000, as well as some recreation facility revenues that will exceed $400,000 above originally budgeted for. I will also note that building permit revenues are expected to fall short of budget by approximately $260,000. To speak about expenditures overall, the district is expected to fall within overall expenditure limits. However, the district isn't permitted to exceed any one particular category that's specified in that financial plan bylaw. And the district is expecting to exceed its protected services overall funding by the end of the year, which is the reason why staff are recommending a financial plan bylaw amendment. The reason for this overage is twofold. First of all, it appears that the funding for the fire crew salaries excluded stat holiday pay. And as you're aware, the fire services department is a 24/7, 365-degree operation. So even on stat holidays, that function needs to be staffed, and so the staff that are working are eligible for stat holiday pay as well. The second reason would be overtime usage is quite a bit this year due to a higher level of illnesses in this year. So that's expected to exceed budget by approximately $132,000 for overtime. General government is expected to fall short of budget limits of approximately $755,000. And so what staff are proposing is that we do a simple bylaw amendment that reallocates some of this funding to protective services to the tune of $250,000. And that will have no tax impact on the taxpayers or financial impact. It will be simply a reallocation from one line item on the financial plan to the other. Other notable variances in the financial plan forecast include capital expenditures, which often don't live up to the full budget. There's a number of equipment purchases that will be carried forward to next year, and a number of other capital purchases underway that will be carried forward. All of the financial plan recommended adjustments are outlined for council in Appendix A. So staff are recommending that council give first, second, and third reading to the financial plan bylaw amendment bylaw. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. And I just want to point out in the original documentation it said draft financial plan bylaw, but it's in fact not a draft, it's the amendment bylaw. So, Councillor Green?
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mayor, to Mr. Payne and our fire chief, just a question on the overage for a high rate of injuries. Could you expand on that a little bit or make a comment? Only because my concern is workplace health and safety, always for all of us. And I would just be interested to know if you have some opinion on that. Thank you.
Chief Hughes?
Through the chair, yes, we've experienced a higher number of injury. Fortunately, the vast majority of the injuries haven't been work-related as well. However, we are dealing with an average age approaching 44 years of age right now, so there's a higher level of injury off the job. But our firefighting force is certainly as fit as they've ever been with our health and wellness program, and our safety record is excellent as well. It's just very much the knees, sprains, strains, backs, and shoulders as well. But we're certainly working hard with our health and wellness on the preventive side to make sure that we keep them as low as possible.
I really appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Councillor Zelka?
Dare I say, well, tongue-in-cheek through you, Mayor, that maybe we should extend our aging in place program to the fire department. Thank you.
I don't think that's part of our policy, so we'll be okay. Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just with reference to the statutory holiday pay being omitted from the fire budget, that just comes as a surprise to me, because I know that obviously that's going to be something that would occur every year because of the nature of it. So I'm going to assume that whatever structural issue that caused it to be omitted is now no longer there.
So looking back, there were a couple of years where something similar happened within that line item. However, Director Payne and myself have worked to make sure we've closed those gaps, so we certainly won't see that oversight again in the future.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments, discussions? Can I get a motion then on the table?
I'll move that we give first, second, and third reading to the financial plan bylaw 4745, amendment bylaw number 1, 2019.
Second.
I would normally do first and second, I think first and then have a discussion, but I think that we're fairly straightforward. I'll allow for discussion after third reading here, and we'll just treat it that way. So we have first, second, and third reading on the table. Any other discussion? I'm not seeing any. I've just, my comments, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I appreciate this is an ongoing work to clean it up, and really appreciate the efforts to bring the financial reporting more into real-time compliance and for information at this body. It's much nicer to have the information now than in 3 or 4 months from now, and we're also in budgetary process. And it highlights to me, not anything to do with this bylaw, that we do need to have more certainty in our surpluses and how we're managing them and making sure they're tying into that long-term financial plan. So I definitely appreciate all the work that's going on in the finance department right now. If there's any other discussion, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And we have now the last item on the agenda, which is it has changed its name, which is was the Administrative Procedures Bylaw amendment and is now the Delegated Authority of Administrative Functions Bylaw, which is a more accurate representation of what's being asked for here. Am I handing us back to Mr. Payne again? Okay. Mr. Payne, our Director of Finance.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Staff have prepared a sustainable procurement policy alongside the delegation bylaw amendment. Staff believe that this policy and the bylaw amendment bring us in line with Auditor General for local government published best practices. But more significantly, the policy raises the authorized expenditure limits delegated to staff. So that's really what to take note of that's being recommended here. The proposal would increase the delegated authority from anything under $35,000 to $250,000. So a significant increase. Within that envelope, managers would be delegated $25,000 in purchasing authority. That's the authority to bind the corporation in a contract worth up to $25,000. Directors, the limit would be $100,000, and anything between $100,000 and $250,000 would be needed to be signed by the CFO. Anything above that would have to come to council for additional authority. So, just as an example, on today's agenda, none of the equipment purchases would be before council. In fact, it would have been before council just in the budget process, and the contract for purchase would have been signed by the CAO. The proposed policy also expands who the delegated authority is provided to. Currently, the bylaw provides a short list of select staff members, including the treasurer and the CAO and a couple other directors that can bind the corporation. The policy expands the delegated authority to all managers and directors. On top of that, we believe that the policy improves upon our current policy in a number of areas. It improves operational efficiency of staff, but we believe that the delegated authority level from a governance lens is appropriate given the survey that's attached to the report as Appendix 3, which outlines all of the delegated authority levels throughout the Capital Regional District, and it is in line with many of the communities that are comparable to ourselves. Other improvements staff contend are in the policy include alignment with recent trade agreements, a renewed focus on the ethical considerations that provides additional guidance to internal staff, the ability to engage in social procurement, and more flexibility in moments of emergencies and times of emergencies. So staff recommendations in the report are to adopt the new delegation bylaw, the Delegated Authority of Administrative Functions Bylaw Amendment Bylaw, number 4746, and to repeal the current purchasing policy and approve the proposed sustainable procurement policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And there was a statement made that everything above 100,000 and below 250. I think I heard CFO, but I believe it was CAO as the approval. That's so I make sure that was clear. If anybody at home heard that same acronym, it is Chief Administrative Officer, that I would have that authority. Are there questions of the council for staff? Councillor Zelka, then Councillor Ney.
Thank you very much. A question to staff regarding page 2, section 3. Number 8 on urgent and emergency situations with respect to suspending normal procurement processes. I just wanted to know whether this would be linked at all to a signing of a state, what is it called, a SOLA, whatever that stands.
State of local emergency.
Thank you. I should know that, but state of local emergency, whether it'll be attached to that. Thank you.
Through your worship, absolutely that would be a situation where that would be applied.
So the final question is that the only situation or are there other emergency situations?
Through your worship, the policy does permit for other situations that meet the definition within the policy. However, at the top of my head, I can't think of another situation that that I could specifically say would be different than that. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I had Councillor Ney next.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. To staff on the, thank you very much for this. I really like this refresh. Lots of really good bringing it up to date. I'm looking at the sustainable procurement policy, and I was just wondering if you could speak to the carbon reduction aspect of the policy. You've got some sort of guidance for us there, but how do you see that playing out? I mean, during a time when a lot of the technology is in transition, and we do need to consider the feasibility, as is stated in the policy document. But how do you see the decisions being made as everything's moving right now?
Mr. Payne?
Thank you, through your worship. So the carbon reduction portion of the procurement policy allows staff to engage in a evaluation that includes these sort of considerations. Generally, with a tender, it's your evaluation is really only monetary. However, in the RFP process or other similar processes, you can consider qualitative information such as carbon pricing, carbon reduction strategies that the proponent may be able to demonstrate, or other social procurement techniques such as whether they hire local or they're hiring people with accessibility challenges or other social procurement considerations. So that those evaluation criteria can be integrated into the competition process. I would recommend when and if that becomes something that council would like to pursue, that a more fulsome conversation happen, because it can come with a price tag in certain situations. Nevertheless, this policy allows for that option at the staff level.
Mr. Just very quickly then, that's what that's very helpful what you just shared, because I got distracted with the term feasible, thinking it was just that one consideration, but you've clearly laid out that it's a complex integration of various other factors that are part of the procurement policy, so thank you very much.
Councillor Appleton.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and through you to staff. I know that in the existing bylaw, both the designated expense authorities and the actual amounts assigned to those individuals are actually in the language of the bylaw itself. The amendment bylaw that's before us proposes to repeal that section of the existing bylaw and replace it essentially with language that points towards the policy itself. So the actual expense limits and the designated individuals are in large part in the actual policy rather than in the language of the bylaw itself. And I'm just wondering what the rationale for that is.
Mr. Payne?
Thank you, Your Worship, and that's a great observation, and that's exactly what is proposed to occur. The bylaw, when the when it's appropriate to change the authorization limits, you need to amend the bylaw, which is a more onerous process than amending a policy. So by replacing the wording, the specific limits within the bylaw, and referring it to the policy instead, should that policy need to be amended at a future date, it's a simpler process.
Councillor Appleton?
Just to follow up, is it then, there's reference made to this being brought into line more consistently with what other municipalities are using. Is that the typical structure that's used in other communities?
Mr. Payne?
Yes, through your worship, in my experience, every municipality I've worked for refers to the authorization limits within the policy. Usually the policy is itself a schedule of the bylaw or a standalone policy, as it is in this case.
Question answered. Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Payne, for bringing this forward. The procurement or purchasing policy was a strategic priority of council in 2015. I've asked for it every year, so I'm very glad to see it in front of us today. But coming, just springing from Councillor Appleton's comments there, I think that certainly while I'm supportive of this, it is based on your commitment to providing a better financial plan and financial reporting, because I think in previous years our reporting has not been fulsome enough to really allow council, I think, to have the confidence at budget times that they were getting full information and were making fully informed decisions at that time, so that there wouldn't be a need for a second review. So, my support is with the caveat, of course, of your commitment to providing the better financial plan and information at the time we are going through budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I saw nodding from Mr. Payne, and a smile, so I don't think he's too frightened by that. Councillor Braithwaite, then Councillor Green.
Thank you so much. And through you, Mayor, just a quick question, Mr. Payne. What happens if something goes to tender and we only get one response? Is there a caveat to redo an RFP, or what would happen in that case?
Mr. Payne?
Thank you, through your worship. Excellent question. A typical term within the RFP is that the district has the right to, first of all, not accept any submission, but second of all, in the case where there's only one submission, cancel the competition and do the competition again.
And so just a follow-up question. So in the new scenario, how it is right now, if that happened to come back to a director, for example, and it was a RFP that was under $100,000, could they make that decision on their own, or how would that decision be made?
Mr. Payne?
Through your worship, the competitions are normally conducted. I've never seen a competition conducted by one individual. It's normally at least a body of 3 individuals. So that team would recommend that it be signed, and then the respective department director would sign it. So the department director is actually most likely not involved in the competition, just the signing authority at the end of the day.
Thank you. And lastly, my thoughts on this are, I'm very pleased to see us moving forward to make a few changes. I think I would feel a lot more comfortable if the amounts were a little bit less, and maybe going into a stepped approach. So go to something for next year and then something higher in the following year. So for example, in next year you could do managers at 25,000, directors at 50, and our CAO at 100, and see how that works for that year, and to see what difference it makes to the load that comes to council. And if it seems to go well, then the year after we could then put higher limits on. And I'm just wondering how others perhaps might feel around the table about that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Green?
I may be the lone voice here tonight. I'm actually very pleased to see this report and your recommendations through you, Mayor, Mr. Payne. I think because for me, the spirit of the document is one that encourages and empowers staff to take leadership, to make decisions. It also streamlines the process for the municipality. I think bringing everything to council can be very onerous and time-consuming. And this practice is common throughout the CRD, and I think you mentioned in your report that Oak Bay was lagging the rest of the CRD on these kinds of issues. So I think for me, I'm very pleased to see this new approach, and I have the confidence in our staff and team to make these decisions in a very professional way. So I guess for me, I don't want to get into the operational side of this report. I don't think I want to interfere with the amounts per se. I would rather just leave that with our director and the team generally, and the CAO. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Braithwaite, you wanted to speak a second?
Sure. Just to clarify, it's not lack of confidence in our staff. It's just that I think that this is a very large change to what our current policy is. And when I look at the CRD survey, we actually it's about an even split as to what other municipalities would be at this level that's being proposed, and ones that are not. I just think that it behooves us to be cautious in how we go forward with something like this. And I think a stepped approach would do that for us. And I wonder how many times something has to come to us that's over $100,000 or $150,000. And it's not, to me, it's not that often. I mean, today was. We had something that came to us today, but it doesn't happen that often. So I'm not sure if it would really make a difference on our work. So it's just a suggestion. I'd like to hear what other people would maybe think about reducing the amounts.
Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite. I have a couple of questions that might help inform as well, if that's okay. One, through me, to staff. Just is there any methodology considered? I think the financial reporting is very beneficial to include just reports out on the types of procurement that's happening, so that there's a sort of some sort of oversight at a high level governance type level on a quarterly basis, half annual basis, something like that. And or maybe some report to council on specifically to competitive bids where there has been a sole source at those, at least a report comes to council to flag those, so if there's a pattern developing that we can maybe change our policies attached to that or something of that nature. So maybe providing some tools where there's a governance lens for this as part of this change. I'll ask that question of Mr. Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. The policy doesn't outline any specific requirements for staff, but I don't anticipate that staff would have any difficulty or concern with providing quarterly or semi-annually updates of direct awards or contracts that are over a certain threshold, so that council can have that review. And don't forget, to some degree, the SOFI, although it's only annual, provides that transparency as expenditures to one supplier over $25,000 have to be recorded there, but that's annually, so I can understand that that's not very often.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do recognize, interestingly, it isn't that often, but tonight we do have a number of staff here just to attend the procurement of a number of trucks, and so this is not always the best use of staff's time and energy on these things. So I am supportive of this approach overall. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, and just a follow-up again on that, I guess I will come back to the fact that we have already committed to changing the methodology by how we are going to work. We're going to be doing budgets earlier. We're going to have more fulsome information. I perhaps have greater confidence because I've been following Mr. Payne's work in his work with other municipalities and watching the financial reporting for a while. So I have very high expectations. I'm stating that here tonight, that we are going to see considerable improvements in Oak Bay's process. Also, we are working under a corporate plan, and we are going to get reporting out. We're going to get performance indicators. We're going to have reporting out after each quarter on finances, and we're going to have an opportunity to look at the reforecast in October. Those are many things that we haven't done before. So there's I am expecting to see a much improved performance, both in the reporting, the efficiency in staff, and certainly the efficiency it brings to council. So I'm not I'm not so concerned that limits have to be staggered, that we couldn't move to these, and that we would still have an expectation as a council if there was a significant change along the way, if there was something that came up that would vary from what had been determined by council at budget, that would be flagged for us at a council meeting by staff.
So since everybody's had a chance to speak here, I think just procedurally we have multiple things on the table to go through. The first item is, yes, Councillor Zelka.
I apologize. I had one more thing just to ask.
Absolutely. I'm not calling for a motion just yet, but go ahead.
I much appreciate it. Just another question, if I may. I'm actually a question relating to the actual policy itself. What am I on? Page 10, section. Oh God, what number is that? 7.6. Number 2, with respect to urgent and emergency situations. Again, I just wanted to. I went into the actual policy and I wanted to ask and drill down one more step further, if I may, please. And I'm very pleased that the chief is here as well, who could potentially help at least with the scenario that I wanted to ask about. I noticed that in the last sentence, just before section 8 begins, around excluded purchases. Does everyone see where I am?
Yes.
All right. The last sentence, it talks about how in the case of an emergency, and the CAO has to authorize a rather large expenditure, we presume, the emergency purchases that cannot be accommodated will be reported to council at the next available regular meeting following the event. If this truly is an emergency, I presume with a state of local emergency, I presume the Emergency Operations Center will be activated, and I presume council will be assembled downstairs as a policy group, sitting, waiting to approve financial purchases. That's, if I understand correctly, and this is really the question, that's not a regular meeting. So that's most likely a special meeting. If I'm not quite sure what that's called, but it's certainly not a regular meeting. So I wanted to ask, what's the point of the word regular here? Thank you.
I'll go to Mr. Payne.
Through your worship, staff have no concern if a regular meeting needs to be regular, could be struck out. The only commentary I would put on it is it establishes a minimum requirement for staff when to get back to council. So above that requirement would be at a special meeting or earlier. But this is at the very least what staff are required to do, is get it to the next regular meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Zolka.
Yeah, so as long as it wouldn't be held back until what, a month later, when we can finally have things settled down, and then we have a regular meeting, and it's like, oh, well, but we were sitting there. So I get the impression that you would come to us, especially if we're already assembled as a policy group. Well, I'm sorry, the CAO would come to us.
Ms.
Yes,
Varela?
yes, I would, Your Worship.
Yeah, and I do note this is for when they've had to make a decision without us there, then reporting to us as soon as we assemble, then we are then that body to manage that process. So thank you. Are there any other pieces? Okay, so I'm just going to go through the procedure here, and I'll make sure I don't get this wrong, Ms. Hopkins, if you don't mind. We're going to do first and second reading of the draft administrative bylaw, the delegation of administrative bylaws, amendment bylaw, first two readings, so we can talk to that, and then the third reading. That's really about the bylaw specifics, was really adopting the changes which essentially points to the policy. Then we'll do a repeal bylaw of the purchasing policy, and then we'll do approval of the policy. And if there's concerns or changes that people want to make with the levels, for instance, or other aspects, that would be the place that we would make any changes at that. And I just, in saying that, wanted to ask one final question. Is there any impact here of us having I guess the final reading of this would then be planned for the 12th on Thursday of this week, so it provides a very short window of having the gap. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Braithwaite.
Sorry, just to clarify, you said that if we have any suggestions for levels, that comes under the proposed sustainable procurement policy. Okay.
I believe that's the appropriate place for council to make to approve the policy and make any changes to it would be under that motion. I'm just going to make sure I'm not wrong here. Would it be both?
Through your worship, it would be both, because the bylaw amendment removes the $35,000 limit and the policy inserts the other limits.
Okay. Procedurally, we're okay to remove that limit as long as we implement something else in the policy approval process, though. Is that not correct? We don't have to specify the things changed to during the first three readings of the bylaw, which only refer to the policy. I'm trying to get clear in my head what I'm required to do here. Because the bylaws, I read it, just refers to the policy for those levels.
Through your worship, the bylaw amendment won't be adopted until the second meeting, so until that time, the $35,000 threshold would still be in place.
Correct.
So from a staff's perspective, amending the bylaw, first three readings of the bylaw, and then repealing the old policy will still work functionally.
I'm looking at quizzical faces over here
Your
sorry,
Worship.
I should have raised this earlier, but it just occurs to me now that I just want to make sure if there's any interest in changing it, that I capture it at the right moment in this.
Your Worship, if you are going to make an amendment to any of the readings of the bylaw, it has to be done after second. So if you do want to make a change to that policy and it is going to impact the bylaw, then that amendment needs to happen after second.
Okay, so we can amend the policy as part of our debate on the bylaw. Because I'm happy to do, I can manage we can amend the policy first, if that's a.
Your worship, suggestion from the table here is that you could do the first and second reading and then table the third reading until after you've had your discussion on the policy, and then you could come back and make the amendments and move third reading if council wishes.
I'll do that just because there were some thoughts raised about it. We'll test the will of the councils for that. So that's a very efficient process, and I appreciate that. So I'll try and make sure we walk through this carefully. So I'd be looking for the first two readings of the draft bylaw amendment bylaw.
I'll move the first two readings.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This is the time for any debate. No one at this point, and then we'll table the third reading until we have the discussion on the policy.
Sorry, so debate not over the level.
Correct. Seeing none, I will call the first and second reading. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Now we're going to, can I get a motion to table third reading until after the debate on the purchasing policy?
Motion to table third reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Now we will get to the I guess sustainable procurement policy piece, because we can't do the repeal until we finish the other pieces. So can we have a motion to approve the sustainable procurement policy, and then we'll take amendment motions to that, if that's all right.
I'll move the proposed sustainable procurement policy.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So that's now live on the table. If there's any changes that people want to make to those levels or any other aspects of the policy, this would be the place to make a motion to that effect. Councillor Braithwaite.
I would like to make a motion to make a change to the level for the directors to $50,000 and to the CAO to $150,000.
Okay, we have a mover. Is there a seconder for that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is the Councillor Braithwaite? We've had a discussion, but if you want to motivate it all, this is your chance to do so.
It's not a lack of confidence in what staff can do. It's that I would feel a lot more comfortable taking a stepped approach. I think I've changed from the $100,000 that I first spoke of for the CAO to raise that to $150,000, taking into consideration some of the comments from staff, from council in regards to the emotions that were on the table or around the council table before for the trucks. So I changed that to 150. I still think that is a good amount for our first step for making a change.
Okay, thank you. Does the seconder want to speak at all? No. Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion now to amend the numbers from 25, 100, and 250 to 25, 50, and 150. So that's the motion on the table. All those in favor? Opposed? We have 4 opposed. Councillor Zelka, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Ney, and Councillor Green. So that motion fails. So we're back to the main motion of the policy as it was laid out. Councillor Appleton.
I'd like to move an amendment that staff be directed to report quarterly to council on those purchases approved under the schedule of purchasing authorities.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I just take that. I want to make sure that the wording of that does not suddenly become a major job of reporting. That wording is clear enough to bring back. Okay. Getting nods from Mr. Payne. Thank you. So we have a motion on the table to bring back quarterly reporting on that. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much for that. Any other amendments, Councillor Zelka?
Thank you. With respect to the emergency use of the policy in that word regular, let's see if I can put this. I wish to move an amendment that the word regular be deleted from the policy, so that it would now read, financial plan will be reported to council at the next available meeting following the event to confirm the action taken.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councillor Zelka, you may speak to this if you wish.
Thank you. A question through to you to staff. Is that going to be a problem, or do we need the word council in there? Is meeting clear enough?
Ms. Varela?
Yes, Your Worship, meeting is clear enough.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussions? All right, I'm just going to ask the question of staff because I always would on changes like this. Are there any concerns raised by changing that wording from staff's perspective? Do you perceive any potential opportunity for issues raised in that scenario? No? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the table. No further discussion. All those in favor? I mean, the amendment. This is on the amendment. In favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We now have a twice amended motion. So we're back to the original motion with those two amendments attached. The policy as laid out, plus the quarterly reporting, plus the change to next meeting, not next regular meeting. Are there any other amendments that Council wishes to see? I'm not seeing any, so I will call the question on this is now the policy, proposed sustainable procurement policy motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Braithwaite opposed. And we're back to now third reading of the draft administrative procedures bylaw. And does that bylaw need to have an amendment? Does either of those two changes require any changes to the bylaw? We're okay. So the original motion, a second reading stands. So we're now looking for a third reading of that procedures bylaw. Do we need to bring it back? Do we need to do a motion to lift, or is it? The motion was to bring it back after that motion. So I'll turn to staff for direction if they.
Yeah, just thought I'd punctuate that. Yes, you can make a motion to.
Let's do that for clarity. So, Councillor Zelka, would you make the motion to lift?
I'll gladly make that motion. Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. So the motion is now back on the table for third reading. I need a motion for third reading.
I'll move third reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I don't usually have discussion on third reading, but we've had a bunch of additions on this. So if there's any other discussion, I'm happy to take it now. Not seeing any, I'll call the question on all those in favor. Opposed? None opposed.
Ask for clarification.
Yes.
Sorry.
How awkward. We're in the middle of a vote.
Okay. You know what? I'll just.
Okay. So not opposed. Okay. So we have all those in favor. Thank you. And then last but certainly not least, the council repealed the District of Oak Bay's purchasing policy.
Move repeal of the Districts of Oak Bay's purchasing policy 1996.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion of that? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And that brings us to?
Move adjournment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. This is the last of the regular meetings, but we have another meeting on this coming Thursday. Where we'll be looking at policies or procedures by law.
A question, a point of procedure, I guess. With respect to the last motion, if I may ask, is this now live, or do we have to now enact it at the next meeting? Just wanted to confirm that.
So I think we've actually called adjournment. So I'll just answer this question as a question. We've had third reading. Adoption happens at the next meeting.